Hi friends, welcome to another lecture on the topic anemia. I hope you are liking the Harrison based series. Kindly hit the like button on this video. Now starting with the topic, anemia is one of the most common disorders which have a variety of causes, and it can lead to decreased functional capacity of individual if appropriate attention is not given on time. We will go in brief with hematopoiesis, then we'll see the clinical features of anemia, how to approach a patient with history, physical examination, and what all lab investigations can be done, especially CBC with smear, reticulocyte count, test for iron supply and storage, and finally bone marrow examination. Then we will see the classification of anemia into three types, that is hypoproliferation disorders, maturation disorders, and anemia due to blood loss or hemolysis. Now friends, hematopoiesis is a process by which the formed elements of the blood are produced. In this what happens is the stem cells play a very important role. These are the cells which are capable of producing RBCs, WBCs and platelets. So for formation of RBCs there is a common erythroid megakaryocyte progenitor cell which will form both platelets and RBCs. Now what happens is that this transcription factor known as GATA1 and FOG1, this is friend of GATA1. These transcription factors are responsible for the lineage commitment towards the RBCs, that is towards the erythroid series. Pronormoblast, which is the first morphologically recognizable erythroid precursor in the bone marrow, it undergoes 4 to 5 divisions forming 16 to 32 mature red blood cells. With increased erythropoietin expression, what happens is there is increase in the early progenitor cells like pronormoblast, therefore increasing the final number of RBCs. The daily replacement of red cells is around 0.8 to 1% of all circulating red cells in the body. This number comes because the average lifespan of RBC is 100 to 120 days. Therefore, daily 0.8 to 1% of all circulating RBCs need to be replaced. Now, the organ responsible for the red cell production is erythron. This is the organ responsible for RBC production. It is a dynamic organ which is made up of rapidly proliferating pool of marrow erythroid precursor cells and large mass of mature circulating RBCs. Now friends, talking about the erythropoietin, it is a very important hormone which plays a very important role in RBC production. So it is a glycoprotein hormone which is a primary regulatory hormone for red cell production. It is required for maintenance of committed erythroid progenitor cells. What are the sources of this hormone? This is primarily kidneys. In kidneys, it is secreted from peritubular capillary lining. Peritubular capillary lining. This lining has a highly specialized epithelial like cells which secrete erythropoietin. Also, in small amounts, it is secreted through liver through the hepatocytes. Now, what is the stimulus for production of erythropoietin? It is the availability of oxygen. that is the decreased oxygen availability at the various tissues as well as kidneys leads to increased EPO synthesis. Increased EPO synthesis. So, since impaired oxygen delivery to kidney can result from either of this, that is anemia, that is decreased RBC mass can lead to decreased oxygen delivery at the level of kidneys. Also hypoxemia because of impaired oxygen loading of the hemoglobin molecule, or there is a high oxygen affinity mutant hemoglobin which is not unloading its oxygen. This can lead to hypoxemia. Also renal artery stenosis, that is impaired blood flow to the kidney. These all factors can lead to decreased oxygen delivery to the kidneys and the release of erythropoietin. Now, how this availability of oxygen regulates the EPO synthesis? This can be explained through the help of HIF-1 alpha. HIF-1 alpha is hypoxia inducible factor 1 alpha. What happens is when there is enough of O2, that is in the presence of O2, this HIF alpha is hydroxylated and it is degenerated via proteasome pathway. But in the absence of oxygen, there is no oxygen, then it is not hydroxylated and it upregulates the EPO expression. So this is the mechanism how EPO is expressed in the absence of oxygen. Now, what are the normal levels of the erythropoietin hormone? These are 10 to 25 units per liter. It is important to note that EPO levels are inversely proportional to hemoglobin levels because hemoglobin levels are proportional to the oxygen delivery. The T half, that is the half-life of erythropoietin, is 6 to 9 hours. Now, considering the mechanism of erythropoietin, the erythroid progenitor cells having the surface receptors for EPO, the EPO binds to these surface receptors and induce them to proliferate and mature. It proliferates these erythroid precursor cells. It is very important to note that the EPO can increase the RBC production by 4 to 5 times in just 1 to 2 week duration. But it should be noted that this happens only if there are adequate nutrients present, especially iron. The presence of the nutrients is very important for the EPO to work. Now friends, considering some values, the normal hematocrit in males is 47% plus minus 7 and females is 42% plus minus 5. When we consider the WHO definition of anemia, it clearly defines anemia as hemoglobin less than 13 gram per deciliter in men and less than 12 gram per deciliter in women. Now let's consider what are the critical elements of erythropoiesis, or what is a functional erythron. First, there should be a proliferative bone marrow. There should be adequate erythropoietin production, adequate iron availability, and finally effective maturation of RBC precursors. So these four are the critical elements for erythropoiesis, that is, we should have a proliferative bone marrow. It should be having enough EPO stimulation, that is only possible when there is normal EPO production. There should be enough of iron availability and effective maturation of RBC precursors. So these 4 points will be used for the classification of anemia, as we will see in the further slides. Now coming on to the clinical features, patients very less commonly present with advanced anemia and its attendant signs and symptoms. Most commonly, it is recognized by abnormal lab screening test. The clinical features are different for acute anemia and chronic and progressive anemia. Acute anemia, since we all know, is due to either blood loss or hemolysis. In the case of blood loss, mainly hypovolemia dominates the picture. Hemoglobin, hematocrit do not reflect the volume of blood lost. Now, depending on the magnitude of blood loss, 10 to 15% of the total body blood loss is well tolerated, and only there is a mild tachycardia. On the other hand, if there is more than 30% of blood loss, patient prefer supine position, shows postural hypotension. Therefore, he prefers the supine position. Also, there is tachycardia. On the other hand, when there is more than 40% blood loss, this is a very severe blood loss. For example, more than 2 liters of blood loss in an average size adult. In these cases, there are signs of hypovolemic shock. What are these signs? Patient will be confused, that is confusion, dyspnea, diaphoresis, that is sweating due to sympathetic stimulation. Now the BP will fall in supine position as well, and tachycardia as usual. Now, after we have seen the features of blood loss, acute hemolysis. With acute hemolysis, the signs and symptoms will depend on the mechanism that is leading to the red cell destruction. For example, intravascular hemolysis with the release of free hemoglobin. This will lead to acute back pain, free hemoglobin in plasma and urine, leading to renal failure. Now coming on to the clinical features of chronic and progressive anemia, these are patients complain of fatigue, loss of stamina, breathlessness especially on exertion, and tachycardia. Now let's see what all mechanisms are going on in body to compensate for the anemia. First of all, the total blood volume increases, the cardiac output increases, there are changes in oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve, that is Bohr's effect. What happens is this curve shifts to right to facilitate oxygen delivery at the level of tissues where there is decreased pH and increase in carbon dioxide. 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate increases intracellularly, and this is the substance which also shifts the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve to the right, therefore facilitates oxygen delivery. Finally, there is shunting of blood away from the organs which have a relatively rich supply, like kidney, gut and skin. Now friends, coming on to the approach, in this we will first see history, then physical examination, then lab investigations. The nutritional history, especially the history of all the drugs and alcohol, is very important. Family history of anemia should be asked to the patient. Certain geographical backgrounds and ethnicities associated with increased likelihood of an inherited disorder. Inherited disorder which is of hemoglobin molecule or any intermediary metabolism. For example, G6PD deficiency and certain hemoglobinopathies. These are more commonly seen in Middle Eastern and African origin. Middle East and Africa. History of symptoms related to other diseases should be asked. For example, bleeding, which suggests an underlying platelet disorder, fatigue, malaise, fever, weight loss, night sweat. These can give a clue to the underlying cause of anemia. Splenomegaly and lymphadenopathy is a very important point to be searched for because it suggests a underlying lymphoproliferative disorder. Which can lead to anemia. Physical findings include loud S1, S2 heart sounds, strong peripheral pulses due to increased cardiac output, and similarly systolic flow murmur. Pallor is seen if the hemoglobin falls below 8 to 10 gram per deciliter. It is seen in the areas where the vessels are close to the surface of the skin. For example, mucous membranes, nail beds, conjunctiva, that is palpebral conjunctiva. Also, this can be seen on palmar creases. In palmar creases, the palmar creases become lighter than the surrounding skin if the hemoglobin is less than 8 gram per deciliter. Now friends, for the lab evaluation of the patient of anemia, for the workup of anemia, we need CBC, iron supply studies, and bone marrow aspirate or biopsy. In this slide, we will first have a look on CBC. The complete blood count will give us the details about red blood cell count, red blood cell indices, WBC count, platelet count, and peripheral smear can also be done. A number of physiological factors affect the CBC, including age, sex, pregnancy, smoking, and the altitude. First of all, let's see the red blood cell count. In this, hemoglobin. High normal hemoglobin can be seen in patients of smoking, who are the smokers, and even at high altitudes. This is the compensation by the body. The heavy smokers, this is a normal compensation due to displacement of oxygen by carbon monoxide in the hemoglobin molecule. Therefore, there is increased hemoglobin. Hematocrit is the percentage of RBCs in the total blood, and it is roughly 3 times the hemoglobin. Reticulocyte count is very important in the approach to anemia, and we will see this in detail in the further slides. Red blood cell indices include MCV, MCH, MCHC, and RDW. Let's see them one by one in detail. MCV is the mean cell volume or mean corpuscular volume. It is represented in femtoliters. The formula for MCV is hematocrit into 10 divided by RBC count in millions. The normal value is 90 plus minus 8 femtoliters. It is used to classify the anemia. When the MCV is less than 80, it is microcytosis, and more than 100, it is macrocytosis. 80 to 100, it is normocytic. Now MCH is mean cell hemoglobin or mean corpuscular hemoglobin, that is the hemoglobin content in single RBC. It is represented by picogram per cell. The formula is hemoglobin into 10 multiplied by RBC count in million. The normal value ranges between 30 plus minus 3 picogram per cell. It is the least useful RBC indice and it tends to track with the MCV. Since the hematocrit tends to track with hemoglobin, therefore MCH also tracks with MCV. MCHC is mean cell hemoglobin concentration and the formula is MCH upon MCV into 10, which gives normal value around 33 plus minus 2%. It represents the grams of hemoglobin per liter of blood. The importance of this MCHC is it can reflect the defect in hemoglobin synthesis in the form of hypochromia. So, if the MCHC is low on peripheral smear, we can appreciate hypochromia. Now, the final one in these RBC indices is red cell distribution width, that is RDW. It is the normal value is 11.5 to 14.5 and it suggests the variation in the cell size and cell shape between the RBCs, various RBCs. The normal value, since it is 11.5 to 14.5, in iron deficiency anemia it is more than 14.5 since there is a lot of variation in size and shape of RBCs in iron deficiency. Now WBC count can give us a hint about infection as the underlying cause of anemia. DLC, that is differential leukocyte count, can show whether there is acute or chronic inflammatory process. Similarly, nuclear segmentation of neutrophils is important because hypersegmented neutrophils can be seen in megaloblastic anemia. There is increased number of segments in nucleus of the neutrophil. Platelet count can give us an underlying platelet disorder or can represent vitamin B12 deficiency, which leads to decrease in all the three lineages, that is leading to pancytopenia. Now guys, the peripheral smear provides important information about the defects in RBC production. As a complement to RBC indices, peripheral blood smear also reveals anisocytosis and poikilocytosis. Anisocytosis is the variation in size, which is also represented by increased RDW. On the other hand, poikilocytosis is the variation in shape. This variation in shape can either be due to maturation defect of RBC at the level of bone marrow, or there can be fragmentation of RBC in the circulation. Blood smear also reveals something known as polychromasia. Polychromasia, this is because of the RBCs which are slightly larger than normal and are staining grayish blue on right Giemsa stain. Grayish blue on right Giemsa stain. These are nothing but prematurely released reticulocytes, and it can be due to either increased erythropoietin stimulation or the damage to bone marrow For example, fibrosis, infiltration by malignant cells. So these reticulocytes are immaturely or prematurely coming out in the bloodstream. Now coming on to the very important part of this lecture, that is reticulocyte count. Reticulocytes are the red blood cells that have been recently released from the bone marrow. When we stain these cells with a supravital dye, these will give blue precipitates because of their ribosomal RNA. The normal range is 1 to 2%, representing the RBC lifespan of 100 to 120 days. There is therefore replacing them. In the face of established anemia, if a reticulocyte response is less than 2 times the normal, it indicates an inadequate marrow response. Therefore, reticulocyte count will only increase if there is functioning normal bone marrow with a normal EPO stimulation. To use the reticulocyte count to estimate the marrow response, two corrections are needed. The first correction is corrected reticulocyte count. It is based on the reduced number of circulating RBCs. Since we all know in anemia there can be decreased circulating RBCs. If the reticulocyte percentage count is given in percentage, this correction is required. This formula comes out to be reticulocyte percentage multiplied by patient's hemoglobin or hematocrit upon normal hemoglobin upon hematocrit or hematocrit for the age or sex of the patient. This will provide the estimate of retic count which is corrected for the degree of anemia, and this correction is not required if the retic count is given in absolute numbers. For example, 50,000 per microliter. This is only done if the retic count is given in percentage. Now coming on to the second correction, that is reticulocyte production index. For this correction, peripheral smear is needed to be examined. It is only done if there are polychromatophilic macrocytes. Polychromatophilic macrocytes seen in the peripheral smear. What does these represent? They will represent premature reticulocytes. These are also known as shift cells. So prematurely released RBCs are reticulocytes and prematurely released reticulocytes are shift cells. So this correction is required because the lifespan of shift cells is more than the lifespan of reticulocytes, that is more than 1 day. Therefore these will remain for more time in the circulation. Therefore this correction is required. The correction factor is 1 to 3 depending on the degree of polychromatophilic macrocytes, and usually a correction factor of 2 is taken. So reticulocyte production index comes out to be corrected retic count, as we have seen in last slide, divided by 2. It is very simple. If the reticulocyte production index is less than 2 in the face of established anemia, it will represent either there is defect in erythroid marrow proliferation due to some infiltration of fibrosis, or there is a defect in maturation of the RBCs due to some nutritional deficiency. After we have seen the CBC studies, the next study we will be looking at iron supply studies. This will give us serum iron. The normal value of serum iron is 50 to 150 microgram per deciliter. It will also give us total iron binding capacity, the normal value being 300 to 360 microgram per deciliter. Now percentage transferrin saturation can be calculated by serum iron upon total iron binding capacity. This will give us normal of around 25 to 50%. Now the normal serum ferritin in case of adult males is 100 microgram per liter. On the other hand, for females this is very low, around 30 microgram per liter. And if the values are 10 to 15 microgram per liter, it is indicating depletion of body iron stores. This iron supply studies are very important in differentiating various causes of microcytic hypochromic anemia, which can be remembered by the mnemonic SITA, that is sideroblastic anemia, iron deficiency, thalassemia, and anemia of chronic disease. Coming on to the bone marrow examination, it can be either aspirated or a biopsy material can be taken. Bone marrow examination is indicated if we suspect a hypoproliferative anemia, and in these the iron studies comes normal. Later we will see these hypoproliferative anemias will be normocytic normochromic anemias. We can get myeloid upon erythroid ratio, which can be used to differentiate various disorders, like for example in hypoproliferative anemia with reticulocyte production index of less than 2, as expected, the myeloid erythroid ratio is usually 2:1 or 3:1, since there is no erythroid response. On the other hand, if there is hemolytic anemia with a RPI of more than 3, myeloid erythroid response will be at least, ratio will be at least 1:1, since there is increased erythropoiesis in cases of hemolysis and increased reticulocyte production. If there is any maturation disorder, there will be discrepancy between the production index and the myeloid erythroid ratio. Iron stain can be done on the aspirate sample, and the storage iron can be seen in the form of ferritin or hemosiderin, and these can be represented by cells known as sideroblasts. The bone marrow examination can diagnose primary marrow disorders such as myelofibrosis, RBC maturation defects, as well as infiltrative diseases. In biopsy, cellularity and morphology of cells can be seen. Now guys, coming on to the classification of anemia. Anemia can be classified into hypoproliferation, that is marrow production defects, marrow is not able to produce the red blood cells, or ineffective erythropoiesis, that is red cell maturation defects. The red cells are produced but these are not able to maturate. Or there can be blood loss or hemolysis, that is decreased red cell survival. Talking one by one, first, hypoproliferation disorders will have a low reticulocyte production index, plus there will be normal RBC morphology, leading to normocytic normochromic anemia. On the other hand, ineffective erythropoiesis due to red cell maturation defects will have slight to moderately elevated, only to moderately elevated reticulocyte production index, and the peripheral smear will have macrocytic or microcytic cells. When there is blood loss or hemolysis as a cause of anemia, the reticulocyte production index is more than 3 times the normal value, provided the sufficient iron is available, but in cases of acute hemorrhage, there will be no elevation in RPI, since the bone marrow is not getting the enough time for increased reticulocyte synthesis. Now coming on to the algorithm of the physiological classification of anemia. Anemia can also be classified according to the size into microcytic, macrocytic, normocytic anemia. But this is the physiological classification of anemia which we are dealing with. First of all, the investigation needed is CBC with reticulocyte count. After the reticulocyte is corrected into corrected retic count and RPI, that is reticulocyte production index, if a index of more than 2.5 is given, then it is due to hemolysis or hemorrhage. The causes can be blood loss, intravascular hemolysis, metabolic defect, membrane abnormality of RBCs, any hemoglobinopathy, immune mediated destruction of RBC, and fragmentation hemolysis. On the other hand, if the RPI is less than 2.5, that is marrow is not able to produce enough retic count in response to anemia, we'll then see the red cell morphology. If it is normocytic normochromic, we have already discussed in the previous slide, it will be hypoproliferative anemia, which can be either due to marrow damage in cases of infiltration or aplasia, or it can be due to iron deficiency, or there is decreased stimulation by the erythropoietin in cases of inflammation, metabolic defect, or a renal disease. If the red cell morphology shows microcytosis or macrocytosis, there will be definitely a maturation disorder. The cytoplasmic defects can be there or the nuclear defects can be there. The cytoplasmic defects will lead to microcytosis in the form of iron deficiency, sideroblastic anemia, and thalassemia. On the other hand, nuclear defects will lead to macrocytosis, which can be due to folate deficiency, vitamin B12 deficiency, myelodysplasia, or drug toxicity. Now let's discuss the various categories in detail. First, the hyperproliferative anemias. These are responsible for 75% of all the cases of anemia. In this, there is absolute or relative marrow failure, in which erythroid marrow has not proliferated appropriately for the degree of anemia. The causes can be either the marrow is damaged, or the iron is deficient, or there is inadequate EPO stimulation. The iron deficiency, it is important to note, it is the most common cause. It is the most common cause, and it should be kept in mind that only mild to moderate iron deficiency will lead to hypoproliferative anemia. On the other hand, we will look in further slides that severe iron deficiency will lead to maturation defect as the cause of anemia. Inadequate EPO stimulation can be due to impaired renal function, or inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 1, or there are decreased tissue needs of oxygen due to metabolic diseases like hypothyroidism. Usually the hypoproliferative anemias are normocytic normochromic, but these can also be microcytic hypochromic with mild iron deficiency or long-standing chronic inflammatory diseases. Investigation required are iron studies. Iron studies can help us differentiate between iron deficiency anemia versus anemia due to chronic inflammation. There is a typical pattern of iron studies seen in chronic inflammation, with ferritin being normal to increased and total iron binding capacity being normal to decreased. Iron and transferrin on the other hand decreases. RFT can be done, TSH can be done to rule out hypothyroidism. Marrow biopsy or aspiration is required if we suspect marrow damage marrow damage or infiltration by diseases like leukemia, lymphoma, etc. Now coming on to the second type of disorders, that is maturation disorders. These are characterized by anemia along with low reticulocyte production index, micro or macrocytosis on the smear, and abnormal RBC indices. The types can be nuclear maturation defects and cytoplasmic maturation defects. Nuclear maturation defect will lead to macrocytosis on peripheral smear, and this can be due to either deficient vitamin B12, deficient folic acid, drug intake like methotrexate or alkylating agents, and myelodysplasia. Alcoholism can also lead to nuclear maturation defects alone or due to deficiency of folic acid. Now these cytoplasmic maturation defects will lead to microcytic hypochromic picture. When we talk of hemoglobin synthesis, the protoporphyrin along with iron forms heme, and this heme along with globin forms hemoglobin. The defect in protoporphyrin synthesis can be due to sideroblastic anemia. Iron deficiency can be due to, if there is iron is deficiency, also it can be due to anemia due to chronic disease in which iron is not able to properly utilized. On the other hand, globin synthesis is defected in thalassemia. So all these causes which can be remembered by mnemonic SITA leads to cytoplasmic maturation defects due to abnormal hemoglobin synthesis leading to microcytic hypochromic anemia. Now when we do a bone marrow examination in cases of maturation disorders, what we will see is erythroid hyperplasia. Bone marrow tries to increase its erythroid synthesis. Now very important concept is in cases of iron deficiency, if it is a mild to moderate iron deficiency, then the erythroid marrow proliferation is blunted. Erythroid marrow proliferation is blunted leading to hypoproliferative disorder. On the other hand, if there is severe iron deficiency, the erythroid marrow becomes hyperplastic despite the iron deficiency. Now this disorder converts into maturation disorder. Now coming on to the third and final mechanism of anemia, that is blood loss or hemolysis. It is the least common cause in which reticulocyte production index is more than 2.5 times the normal, and in peripheral smear there is increased polychromatophilic macrocytes. These are the shift cells. When we see the MCV, there will be normocytic or macrocytic picture. These macrocytes are nothing but the shift cells. Acute blood loss do not present with reticulocytosis because the time required for increased EPO production and subsequently myeloproliferation will be required, and these will not lead to reticulocytosis. It is important to note that acute blood loss will be having a RPI less than 2.5. If there is intrinsic RBC defect leading to intravascular hemolysis, again RPI will be less than 2.5, because in these cases there is loss of iron, and iron is not left for effective marrow response. This limits the marrow response to increase the reticulocyte count. Only the extrinsic RBC defect leading to extravascular hemolysis will lead to more than 2.5% of RPI. Now the extrinsic defect in RBCs can be caused by immune hemolytic anemias, micro or macroangiopathic hemolytic anemia, or malaria. In immune hemolytic anemia there is IgM or IgG mediated destruction of RBCs, and Coombs test is used. Which can be either direct or indirect. In micro or macroangiopathic hemolytic anemia, it is due to micro or macro thrombi, which results in formation of cystocytes, which are fragmented RBCs, and this can be caused by TTP, that is thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, HUS, that is hemolytic uremic syndrome, and disseminated intravascular coagulation. Malaria can lead to the destruction of RBCs by Plasmodium species, which is transmitted by female Anopheles mosquito. Clinical features will be seen in extensive defect in RBCs disorder leading to extravascular hemolysis will be anemia, splenomegaly because there is increased burden on spleen to destroy the many abnormal RBCs, and jaundice. This will be indirect hyperbilirubinemia, and there can be pigment gallstones. Now coming on to the intrinsic defect in RBCs, this will lead to intravascular hemolysis and RPI will be less than 2.5. There can be either membrane defects, hemoglobin defects, or enzymatic defects. Membrane defects can be seen in hereditary spherocytosis and paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. Hereditary spherocytosis is inherited defect in proteins that maintain the integrity of RBC membrane. So these proteins are defective. This will lead to small round cells without any central pallor, and it is diagnosed with osmotic fragility test. In PNH, there are inherited abnormalities or absence of surface proteins that are protecting the RBCs from the complement. There is increased oxidative stress results in destruction of RBCs overnight. Since there is acidosis in night, this will lead to RBC destruction in night containing the hemoglobin, and it is diagnosed with the help of Helms test. In abnormal hemoglobin, there is sickle cell anemia. As we all know, it is due to substitution of glutamic acid with valine in the hemoglobin chain, which results in HbS, hemoglobin S. This hemoglobin S will sickle when it is deoxygenated. This leads to vaso-occlusive crisis leading to tissue infarction like dactylitis, autosplenectomy, extreme pain, acute chest syndrome, and also can lead to renal papillary necrosis. The enzymic defects like G6PD deficiency we have already discussed, which is more common in Africans. This G6PD enzyme, this is responsible for the NADPH production. This NADPH is used to reduce the oxidized glutathione. Oxidized glutathione is reduced with the help of NADPH. Now this glutathione, this is oxidized while protecting the RBCs from hydrogen peroxide or reactive oxygen species. Therefore, G6PD deficiency results in destruction of RBCs by oxidative stress. What are the bodies seen in G6PD deficiency? These are Heinz bodies, which are destroyed to form white cells. Thank you so much guys. Kindly hit the like button on this video, and there is one homework for you. Kindly look all the peripheral smears which are given in Harrison in the chapter of anemia and polycythemia.